Your patience as we get prepared for the Mayor's Forum. We drew numbers, and the order is based on the numbers drawn. So our first candidate is former Mayor Tom Swisstack. Next candidate is Christopher Muldrow. And our third candidate is current Mayor Greg Hall. Okay, we're going to start off with opening statements in the order that we are. Will be the same rules as before. They'll have 3 minutes for their opening, and then the questions will be about 2 minutes each, and then we'll have the closing for 2 minutes after that. Okay, so before we get started, I want to again thank everyone for coming out. The Rio Rancho Regional Chamber wanted to make sure that we had a venue so you could hear from the candidates at no cost, no charge, in an open, comfortable forum. I hope everybody's comfortable. Premier Cinemas is awesome. Please give them a round of applause. So with that, for those that don't know me, I'm Jerry Shallow. I'm the President and CEO of the Rio Rancho Regional Chamber. And with that, Mr. Tom Swisstack. Opening statement.
I do need that mic, Jerry. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Swisstack, and I am a candidate for mayor for the city of Rio Rancho. I'm here tonight with my lovely wife, who's sitting the third row back over there. And I have two stepchildren, Kai and Hannah, who both attend the University of New Mexico. And I also have a therapy dog now, and I don't know whether my wife did that for me during the campaign or for doing the things that she does with children. So thank her for both. I want to thank Jerry and the Rio Rancho Chamber for hosting this important event tonight. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that I've lived in Rio Rancho for over 30 years. Rio Rancho, in my opinion, is at a crossroads right now. This is why I am running for mayor. We hear a lot about aggressive economic development, but we have to start to define what that really means. We need to start to double down on addressing our infrastructure needs, as we all have talked about in previous discussions. We also have to recruit and retain, not just recruit and retain our public safety officers and make sure they have the tools they need to do their job. I do know how to lead economic development efforts so that more small businesses as well as national companies want to come to Rio Rancho. As your previous mayor, I worked with many others to bring in Rio Rancho Sandoval County Regional Medical Center, Rusk Presbyterian Hospital, UNM, CNM, Latitudes, Hewlett Packard, Premier Cinema, and our Office of Veteran Affairs. I am also proud that we provided the incentives that we now have benefits for the Petroglyph Medical Plaza area, as well as the Enchanted Hills Plaza at the north end of town. Of all this, we also brought in $4 billion in direct investments to the city of Rio Rancho over the years, and for that I am grateful for all the people that worked hard. Why? I want my stepchildren to be able to return to Rio Rancho, because I want them to have a good paying job. I want them to have affordable housing. I want a safe community. And yes, I want a quality of life that every person in New Mexico will envy. I want this for all of our citizens. And I'll say this again, Rio Rancho's at a crossroads. I support the $10 million bond. Rio Rancho is a great city. As your mayor, my top priority is to create more innovative and business-friendly city supports, existing businesses, and encourage entrepreneurship to invest in Rio Rancho. As your mayor, I will work with the stakeholders to create a smart, affordable, actionable plan to upgrade our city's roads and infrastructure. The employees, ladies and gentlemen, of Rio Rancho are our ambassadors, and we must make sure they have the tools if we want them to do the job that this city expects to become a 21st century. Thank you very much.
Yes, Chris Muldrow.
Good evening. First, I'd like to say thanks for inviting me. I think it is very important that we have these candidate forums. And I've been saying that not only in business venues or hosted by business associations and things of that nature, but also non-business candidate forums. So again, thanks for having us. One of my big things is it's not about the cards you're dealt. And whoever we choose to elect, our city councilors, because Because this election is just not about a mayor. Whoever we choose to elect, our city councilors, our new mayor, whoever we choose to elect, is not going to be about the cards they're dealt. Because they're going to have to fix a lot of things. And I'm standing here today saying I'm ready to do that. But a little bit about me, at the age of 15, I was a ward of the state of New Mexico. A lot of people don't know that. And those were the cards I was dealt. A lot of people that I grew up with in high school didn't graduate from high school, let alone college. I went on to New Mexico State, where I obtained my bachelor's degree. After that, I was blessed with an opportunity to go to the University of New Mexico School of Law, which I recently graduated in December. And sometimes I wonder why I'm standing here. I didn't go to law school to run for mayor of Rio Rancho or any city. I went to law school to practice law. But what I've seen is a current administration, elected administration, that makes me unhappy. When they say we have to make a choice between a leaky roof or an ambulance, I say that's not true. I say we have to make a choice between a leaky roof, an ambulance, or self-promoting pay raises. Now in 2014, we approved every measure on the ballot. It was one measure we as voters did not approve, and that was the pay raises for the mayor. Shortly after, less than 2 years, the governing body gave themselves pay raises. I don't agree with that, and I think that's the choice that we made. So maybe it's those pay raises rather than that leaky roof, or maybe it's those pay raises that required us to choose whether it's that ambulance or that leaky roof. So that's one of the reasons I'm running. And I think sometimes when you make a mistake, you have to admit it. And I did an interview on a radio show, and I said that we had 5 water rate hikes in 4 years. I was wrong. I stand here today and I say I was wrong. But the thing is, what's unacceptable to me to do is get elected and for 4 years stand back and say, well, that was the past administration. There were ways we could have remedied those problems, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Thank you.
Good, and I'm going to try to muscle through this. I've got a little bit of laryngitis going on this evening. Good evening, my name is Greg Hull. I'm the current mayor of Rio Rancho. And I'd like to thank the Chamber for putting on this event. This is a great forum, and thank each and every one of you for coming out this evening. You took time out of your lives to come here and hear us talk about the issues and hear us talk about what's going on. A little bit about myself. I'm joined this evening with my lovely wife, Carrie, and yes, back up there, waving your hands. And yes, give her a round of applause. She's got to get up with me. We are the parents of 5 children and the parents of, and now grandparents of 6 grandbabies. We just had our most recent grandbaby in the last month, so new Rio Rancho resident. His name is Cash, and we are very happy that he's here. We have lived in Rio Rancho for the past 20 years, with the exception of a few years where we lived just across the border in Ventana Ranch, and we currently reside in Cabazon. All of our children were raised up through the Rio Rancho Public Schools. A little bit about my background is I'm a small business owner, and so when we talk about business development, I'm going to talk from a very strong place of experience. I've built and grown 2 businesses of my own, and the last one that we built is still in existence today. It's Certified Packing and Crating. It's a shipping company that's down in Albuquerque. We built that particular business from the ground up. And what was very interesting about that business model, when you talk about fiscal responsibility, that we ran that business debt-free for 12 years and employed at times up to 20 people. So we had the responsibility of providing support for 20 families, and so we took that very serious. But just to touch base on a couple of things in my introduction as we get started here, I just want to point out that, you know, when I took office, it was never on my radar to run for mayor. But when I took office, there were a lot of things that needed to be dealt with: public safety, roads, water, and job creation. And each of these things we've taken very serious. Each of these items we have worked on very diligently. And we'll be talking about the different successes that we've had in these particular areas. But when it comes to growing a business, when it comes to running a business, when it comes to setting one up from the ground up, I have the experience, and I've used that experience in the mayor's office, And because of that, you've seen almost $100 million worth of retail commercial development in the city in the last 4 years, and we're just getting started. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Chris Moser will take the first question as we continue the same style rotation that we had for the previous event. Okay, so just as full transparency and disclosure, so a number of you all had submitted questions via these cards, so thank you so much. These questions will vary slightly because I'm combining cards that have very similar topics so we can get one complete answer. First question is, 70% of residents say roads are key to our growth. Roads are an issue that's become a big part of this campaign and this election. What plans do you have to continue road improvements and expansion, and where do you stand on Paseo del Volcan?
Well, I'll start with, I'm not in support of Paseo del Volcan at this point. I think when we look around our city, we see that we currently have roads that are in desperate need. And I think we need to focus on the roads that we have that need work. You know, I believe on being tough on crime, but I don't believe crime-fighting roads is the solution to that. And what I'm talking about is roads that swallow stolen cars. We've seen that happen here in Rio Rancho. And a road that swallows a stolen car will also swallow a car that's not stolen. And we've seen 2 cars swallowed by the road. So I think we need to focus on the roads we have and put the Paseo del Volcan project on pause. One of the things I would like to see is us focus on Southern. If you look at Southern, yes. If you look at Southern, what you see is we have a plan right now where we're going to be doing from 528 to golf course. However, what about the rest of Southern? What happens when you go past golf course? But we want to build a road, Paseo del Volcan, all the way to the interstate. I think we need to focus on what we have. And one of the things interesting that I think is interesting to point out about the funding for the road on 528, from 528 to golf course, is that was funding that we received from a prior administration, to my understanding, from the things I read. But again, I think we need to focus on the roads we have, and definitely, I'm running out of time, but I do believe we need to partner with the county. We're the largest city in the county. We contribute the most funds to this county, and we're not getting the bang for our buck back from the county in regards to restoring our roads. So that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mayor Hall.
So roads was the #1 issue 4 years ago when I took office. At the time, all the road bonds had been killed in the city because there was a lack of trust where that money was going. And so what we had to do is reestablish the trust to get the road bond going. In 2016, I asked each of you to vote for a $9 million road bond. And I asked you to trust me with that money. And what we did with that money is we rebuilt Sarah and High Resort. We did it on both of those projects. We came in on time and $3 million under budget. So that's the way we put that money together. We were able to take the $3 million additional money and put it to Southern Boulevard, and if it wasn't for that, we'd be doing 2 construction projects in front of our critical businesses. Without those businesses, we don't survive. And if we shut them down more than once by segmenting these road projects in front of the businesses, you'll end up killing those businesses. So that being said, we have the money that gets us from 528 to Southern. The entire project out to Rainbow is going to be a total of $90 million, so we will continue to do that. To answer the question on PDV, I sponsored a resolution that supports it because with PDV, we will be able to create new opportunity, new jobs, open up land where we can create manufacturing jobs and create opportunities west of the city so that we can create those opportunities that are going to keep our children right here in this community. If we're going to really invest in bringing jobs to the community and we're serious about it, we've got to create the infrastructure that gets those manufacturers and those job creators right here in Rio Rancho. If we don't have that now, they're not going to wait for us to build it before they come. It is, they want to see us in the works, getting that infrastructure in the ground so that they have what's known as a plug-and-play environment, where they come in, they start bulldozing, and they get the work done. So I'm in very much a support of fixing our roads and PDV.
Thank you, and I want to make a couple comments here real quick. So I must have been in a different administration than at the time when the bond was killed, because if I'm not mistaken, there's been some people who are presently on the city council that actually encouraged the public to vote against that bond.
That's right.
And let me kind of talk a little bit now about infrastructure. Improving our roads and infrastructure is 100% tied to economic development in the city. If anybody denies that, then you're fooling yourselves. My plan is to improve and expand our infrastructure in two parts. The first part is to bring to the table all our funding partners so that the taxpayers alone do not bear this cost. These funding partners could include the county, SCAFCA, the utility company, along with the city. And whoever said that the utility company can't play to help put a bond together is not quite accurate, because I can point out places in the state and in the country where they're doing that. Thank you. And let me kind of put this into your imagination, because we do have a bond that I'm in support of for $10 million. And to the best of my ability, each mile costs approximately $1 million. Is it possible that these partners working together could leverage a $50 or $60 million bond that would increase our ability to address the larger number of our roads and infrastructures sooner during my lifetime? What I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, that this plan will be aggressive and long-term, and what at the same time keeping our citizens informed on where it is occurring in their neighborhoods, not just the main streets. The second part of my plan, and this is where the administration must have been different, I must have fell asleep at the podium at this time, is that the dollars that we brought in was a $25 million bond. The voters voted for it, and I thank them for that. But what we did at that time was manage to leverage it to $20 million for $45 million for the roads. The people on the council prior to this assisted that the voters don't vote for it again, because they wanted to pay as they go, putting us behind 6 years on roads, which everybody's talking about.
Okay, Mayor Hall, you get the first question, or should I say the second question coming up here. The question is, Albuquerque is one of the highest cities for crime in the country, per capita level. Meanwhile, Rio Rancho is maintained being the safest city in New Mexico. How will you continue the focus on public safety, and what will you do to help, or should I say, what role does the city play in helping reduce drug addiction as part of public safety?
Well, thank you for that question. Okay, so first off, on public safety, what we do to continue to keep Rio Rancho the safest community in the state is, first off, we invest in our police and fire by getting them the equipment that they need. The equipment that they've had has been years old, and we have fought I've fought in the past years to get the equipment from the legislature, like ambulances and other equipment as such, but now it's time to make a real investment in our police and firefighters. So we have before us a question on the ballot that is a public safety bond that will allow us to replace a ladder truck, an engine, a tanker truck, and other apparatus, breathing apparatus, and along with 50 other police cars. So we have these things here. I believe that if we move these capital expenditures off into another financing mechanism, that it'll free up dollars in the general fund that we can use to enhance our police force, perhaps by hiring additional police officers or getting our pay rates competitive with that in Albuquerque. So what we want to do is continue to grow our police force to meet the need. When it comes to drug addiction, what we need to do as a community is to come around these individuals that are struggling with this particular, this struggle in their lives. We have to work with these individuals to try to overcome this addiction. It is becoming just a bane on our society. And the more people that this affects, the more people involved in this, the more it affects. And so putting really pedal to the metal and doing real things that help us meet this problem is going to be critical. But first and foremost, continuing our ground game with our police force, continuing our ground game with our fire department, continuing to make Rio Rancho the safest city in the state. That's something worth investing in, and because look at the great community that we have. Thank you.
Tom Swisstack.
1 minute before we go further.
No.
This isn't the order the questions were presented to me in. So can I get the questions? Because Because what I have is a different.
Right, we're basing them off of the, what is being asked, what we collected.
Okay, first of all, do we have any public safety people here, firefighters, paramedics, or police officers? If you can raise your hand. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a big round of applause. Second of all, yes, we are a safe city. But let me kind of do some clarification real quick because you heard it earlier, okay? We have approximately one facility closed down, Mariposa, that would take about 12 more bodies to kind of reopen again. Yes, they closed it down because it doesn't have a great response time numbers that they have over there. But if you're the person having the heart attack in that area, or you're the person that needs some help for somebody as soon as possible, I'd ask you to think whether or not you want that open. Second, our law enforcement people, our police officers, they're down about 9 people. And again, you've heard a city councilor, a candidate, talk about having 5 people at night between 1 and 6 in the morning cruising a city that is stretched out from one end to the other. Is that safe? And I turn around and I ask you for this here. Our public safety people are stretched to the max. To the max. They are doing one great job to protect the city. But we need to start talking about, because we all talk about how we want to do bonuses and how we want to do salaries and how we want to have proper equipment. What we need to start to talk about is how we're going to bring the revenue, get it off home plate to first base to see whether the public, after we provide them the information, after they can make a decision, after they trust the facts, whether or not they want to look at a steady stream of revenue for our public safety people who protect our families, who protect us individually, and who protect this community so economic people could come and open up their businesses, not like what's going on in Albuquerque at this point. And as they tighten up in Albuquerque, I can guarantee you, because I've worked in that field, that business will start to come across into our community and start to affect it more than it is now with the increase of auto thefts and the increase of breaking and entry. Thank you.
Thank you, no problem. I can roll with the flow. It was my understanding that we had 5 scripted questions and then we were going to do the audience card questions. But so can you please repeat the question for me? Thank you.
Yes, the question is, Albuquerque is one of the highest cities for crime in the country at a per capita level. Meanwhile, Rio Rancho has maintained being the safest city in New Mexico. How will you continue to keep the focus on public safety, and what is the city's role in drug addiction control?
Thank you. What I would say is it all comes back to proper funding. I think that's one of the major issues. We need to make sure we have enough police officers. We need to make sure that our officers are funded properly. But it doesn't stop there. We have to make sure that our municipal court is funded properly as well. And we can go back and look over the record, but Judge Cook has been asking for another judge in the municipal court for over 10 years now, and he still hasn't got it. And when I first walked into the municipal court and I had my experience there, I was very unhappy. I was like, how are we running this court? And I was so upset with the court and the court staff and things of that nature. And I came to City Hall with all my complaints. But then when I started to realize and look closer at the problem, it came back to funding. We have a municipal court judge who's been asking for a second judge for over 10 years, or 10 years now, and he hasn't got that. That's something we need to think about. Under this administration, we've been told that this is the first full-time mayor. But under this administration, it's important to note that this is a city manager form of government. And under this administration, we now have an assistant city manager who makes over $100,000 a year. But we still don't have the second judge we need. We're still seeing our court staff and our police personnel underfunded. So I think that's one of the things we need to address. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question goes starting off with Tom Swisstack. The question is Rio Rancho has seen exceptional growth over the past 20 years, and greater than 50% of our residents still go to work outside Rio Rancho every day. What are some things you're going to do to propose to bring more jobs to our city?
I'm going to try to answer this in a few parts, and hopefully it's some concrete suggestions. First, we need to educate everyone in Rio Rancho, the citizens, about the importance of spending their hard-earned money here in Rio Rancho. We really do. We know that over 50% of our residents work outside of Rio Rancho and most likely spend a lot of their money outside of our city. In addition to that, we have the framework of marketing a campaign with our Buy Rio Rancho, Shop Rio Rancho, which the Chamber heads up along in partnership with the city and others. I believe we need to broaden that, deepen that plan so that everyone understands that spending money here will help build our roads, fund our public safety, and expand our quality of life issues in this city. Second, we need to be more aggressive with recruiting big companies for Rio Rancho. For example, did we do everything that we could to win Facebook over to Rio Rancho over Los Lunas? That is the one that will puzzle me for a long time to come. Third, we need to be much more proactive when we have shovel-ready sites. Companies have changed. They're no longer in a position where they can put in $60 million of infrastructure to build in our city if we can't work and have shovel-ready areas where the utilities are up to the property where they can connect and open their doors as quickly as possible. And fourth, as mayor, I would reinstate my use of an A-team. Back in the days, yes, some good things did occur back in the days where you actually had people who sat at the table that were bankers, developers, landowners, and the city and the county, so that you would be able to open that person's door in the time that he or she wanted it. Examples like Hewlett-Packard opening up in 6 months, Victoria's Secret when they were around, Stoller, and a number of others, because for businesses, opening the doors as quickly as possible means dollars. Thank you.
I think we need to do what works. And I want to talk about construction and how much we've seen construction in Rio Rancho. Cost of buildings, development, materials, things of that nature. In 2014, we seen $20 million in construction spending here. In 2014, we seen $121 million. In 2015, $16 million. Or I'm sorry, in 2014, 2016, 1.5 million, and then 2017, 9 million. So the number that really jumps out to me is 2014, $121 million. How do we get that? We had a moratorium, which we collected no impact fees from commercial development. Am I proposing that we go back to zero? No. And right now, under this current administration, give credit where credit's due, they have taken some steps to lower those impact fees. But we really have to look at those impact fees. When we're 3 times higher and we're getting into those numbers, it makes it unattractive for people to come here. So I really think we really need to address that. Where our stance on impact fees have gone at this point, it's not enough. And that's why I think we're seeing these drops. Do I think we can do a moratorium? I'm not going to stand out here and propose that, because we have a problem with water as well, and we need to focus on that. But we do need to focus on these commercial impact fees. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so job growth. What are we going to do to get the jobs here? We worked very hard on setting up the IRB to get Safe Light here, 900 jobs, $22.5 million in annual payroll, the biggest jobs announcement the state has seen in 15 years. As far as other companies coming here, they are looking for the plug-and-play infrastructure. They're looking for infrastructure in places that make sense. But to the impact fee, this is one of those things that I took on when I took office. The city was embroiled in a lawsuit because the impact fees had been taken to zero, and that was eventually ruled a government taking of property. And so once we got that settled, we were able to actually sit down, have a realistic, strong discussion about how we were going to compete with Albuquerque. Now, we're not a standalone city just off out in the middle of nowhere by ourselves. We border the first largest city in the state, and we share a border with it. So we are competing for those businesses. We are competing on land development. So when your impact fees are double what they are to the city just to the south of you, it makes it very difficult to compete. So under my administration, we worked through this and we were able to adopt an impact fee schedule that reduced those impact fees by over 50% for some commercial developments. And because of that, we have a strong resurgence of interest in developing in Rio Rancho and a lot of things going on. If you look at the Unser Gateway, when I took office, it was very sparse for development. Now you're seeing a lot of companies come in. You're seeing a lot of development, a lot of medical interest, which was what that plaza was originally developed for. But when you look at what was going on just before, when you have HME and Liberty Dialysis building their buildings just on the south side of our border, that alerts you that something's wrong. So that being said, we worked very hard to make this impact fee schedule work, and we believe that it's going to start working very soon. Thank you.
Okay, Chris gets the first response to the next question. All right, this has been another hot topic here tonight, so thank you all for submitting your questions. There have been many residents asking questions about the water rates in Rio Rancho. What are your thoughts on the water rates? Is there ways to reduce the water rates and then while being fiscally responsible and promoting conservation?
I say the answer to that question is yes. And some people like to say I'm a one-dimensional candidate because I want to talk about water. I think a lot of residents in this city want to talk about water. It is not something that just affects residents. If you look at it, why do we continually have to talk to business entities about giving them breaks on water? Is that dissuading businesses from coming to the city of Rio Rancho? I say yes. So it's not just a residential issue, it's a business issue as well. So what I say is broken promises. I think 4 years ago, we heard a lot of promises about things we were gonna do to fix the water rates in Rio Rancho. But now I hear is we would just wanna say, well, before the 4 years came, there was a study that was done. It was recommended that we do 5 rate hike increases, so that's what we've done. But to me, that's unacceptable. We had a water utility commission, and that's where the rates eventually first came through in 2013, 2012. But however, under this administration, the Water Utility Commission came back and said, hey, we don't support water rate hike increases. They're not necessary. They proposed getting rid of the franchise fee. And I don't know if a lot of people know, but we pay the franchise fee. The franchise fee goes to the city. Right now, we're using our water utility to prop up our general fund. Maybe it's to support the pay raises. Maybe it's to support wasteful spending, but I don't agree with that. And we pay our taxes, which goes, again, we get that in the general fund and the franchise fee. I think we need to get rid of that. And there's things we can do. We got a $30 million loan to build a treatment plant. We spent $2 million to get a plan on building the plant, and then decided that it was too expensive to build. We wasted $2 million. We're pulling money out of our water utility at every single angle. You know, whether it be G&A, other things like that. We really need to reevaluate this situation. We need to reinstate our Water Utility Commission and decentralize the power. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the water has absolutely been a big contention for everybody. Is that just prior to my administration, a 5-year plan was adopted. That's true, and as that plan has progressed, there has been a lot of delays.